Hello. Hello. Alan Rule here. I just got word that James White had a discussion with Mr. Cameron Bertuzzi, who is a Protestant who's kind of looking at Catholicism. I don't know. I don't follow Bertuzzi that closely, so I don't know how into it he is. I know he's hanging around a lot of Catholics like Scott Hahn, Matt Fradd, and a bunch of people. However, he wanted to have a discussion with James White. And I wanted to get on this quick because it's pointless doing a review if a lot of other prominent Catholics have, and yet. So I'm just trying to get on it first. But the other thing is I haven't watched this. I watched like 30 seconds. I went 30 seconds in, and James White was saying, what James White says, which is normally a bunch of garbage. But no, it's going to be interesting. I know Cameron Bertuzzi came up with this mathematical argument for the papacy, which frankly, no, don't do that. I know the other Paul did a response to it. I was going to watch it, but it was at an unseemly hour, him being in Australia, me being in the mountain time zone in Canada. Pretty much just finish it. His post-Bertuzzi monologue is bad. Well, I think all of James White. Well, he has his moments, White. Yeah, that's because Father James, both me and you are big history geeks. We read a lot of this stuff constantly. I mean, not everyone else does. Anyway, fair enough, though. Fair enough. I guess we all should know more than we do. All right, I'm just going to get into this. We will see how far we get. Maybe he does. He seems like a nice guy, though. And I do got to respect something about, because James White, although I don't think he's an expert in this stuff, he claims to be. So at least Bertuzzi is talking to people like White, people like Scott Hahn, and people like that. So he's getting he's consulting experts. I mean, for example, if you want to go in the Fourth Crusade, you come to me. I'm the Fourth Crusade guy. But okay, all right. I'm going to get into this. We will see how far we get. It's over an hour. Yeah, that is a pretty big deal if you didn't know about that. But anyway, we're going to add it to the stream, and we are going to start. All right. Wow. I'm just going to put it. All right, there we go. So you don't have to look at my scurvy mug. Oh, why does he play this stupid music? Okay, I'm going to skip ahead.
That meant that you were like at the back of the class or something like that, but now it's just the opposite. So I don't know. I've not figured all these things out. I'm an old man. But Capturing Christianity, tell us, for those that know.
All right. I just got a question. Can someone tell me how long James White has had his facial hair like that? Because it's not working for him. I don't think so. I think Cameron Bertuzzi looks much more polished.
Audience that aren't familiar with you, what is that all about, and when did you get started?
Yeah, so Capturing Christianity actually sprung as a response. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's really loud on my end. It's distorting a little bit. So
okay, sorry.
It sounds like you're screaming. So I'm trying to get Rich to turn those things down.
Oh, by the way, can everyone hear me?
Well,
Go ahead.
It's great to be here with you, James. I know that you've done some shows about some of the things that I've done, and it's just great. I appreciate the magnitude of this event. I think it's really cool that you invited me on and that we're able to do this. So I'll just tell you a little about my ministry, Capturing Christianity. So it started it stemmed from my brother becoming an atheist about 10 years ago at this point. And I had a conversation with him when I initially heard about it, and the conversation did not go well. So after that point, I started to look into things a lot deeper. I wanted to really find out, is there good evidence for the truth of Christianity? I came across guys like William Lane Craig, Josh Rasmussen eventually, but a lot of these guys, they eventually became heroes of mine. In the sense of they have these. I'll I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Let me just continue the story here. So I'm a little bit nervous. It's a little bit nervous to be on here with you, James, even though I can't see you anymore.
Oh.
But yeah, so my story is I eventually found that there's all of this evidence for the truth of Christianity, and I eventually wanted to share that with people. And that's why I eventually started out Capturing Christianity as a blog. I was starting to write little articles.
I started out
in
a blog as well. God
different
bless
apologetics related issues.
And by the way, for those who don't know, my blog is still up. I don't post her anymore, but I post it consistently for 5 years. So have a look at her.
Into a YouTube channel. And so now we've got a YouTube channel, about 125,000 subscribers, I think, at this point. And that's the short story of how this all came about.
Okay. And tell me a little bit, if you could, what about your church background, where things like that?
Background, very charismatic. And so that's something that I've kind of been, well, I want to say struggled with, because when I started to learn about philosophy and apologetics and theology, and
guys, I got to admit, the charismatic Christianity is, I don't know, that's not my fault. This has to do with James White's setup. I just downloaded this video. So here we go.
Really realized how far away my background was from that. Like, the charismatic church they didn't really appreciate theology at all. I went back recently, actually, to the church that
Yeah, that's true. The charismatic church is less focused on theology. And I got to say, the top apologists now are not the kind of evangelical Baptist. The top apologists now, like the three top apologists, I think, are like who are Protestants are, in terms of scripture, you got to go with Anthony Rogers. In terms of who's calling me? Okay, in terms of scripture, you got to go with Anthony Rogers, I think. In terms of church history and theology and stuff, and like, you got to go with my friend Father James, who's just in the chat. He might still be here for all we know. So shout out to you, Father James. And Dr. Cooper is pretty good. But in terms of Baptist and like charismatic, they don't got much left. I'm sorry. I gotta be honest here.
once attended, and the stuff that they were saying was crazy. It was crazy. And so that's my background is charismatic. And so at this point, I'm just still wading through the different theological issues. I don't really know where I sit on a lot of these things, as you've actually noted on your program. So
okay, so let me ask you, because I don't know what the background is, and so most charismatic churches, I know of some exceptions, but the way you described it doesn't sound like this would be an exception. Most charismatic churches and a lot of fundamentalist churches, church history goes back to Billy Graham, and with charismatic churches to some other, well-known person 50 years ago. But
now, it's true that most Protestants in the world today, I'm going to point this out, most Protestants in the world today go to churches that are less than 100 years old. And I think that's something that people should probably think about. You know, how come that's happened, but I don't know. I'm not saying that refutes Protestantism, but I'm just saying it's an interesting thing to think about.
The idea of a connection to the early church or even to the Reformation, very, very unusual amongst those groups. Not a lot of self-awareness as to where our church is in relationship to other churches, history, things like that. Is that where you would have been as far as your upbringing?
Well, to be honest, James White, like the church he's part of, started 10 years ago, Apologia. I mean, so it's kind of like throwing a stone in a glass house. When did Apologia start? I know he was with the Phoenix Reformed Baptist Church, which was a bit more serious. But now he's with this kind of Apologia, you got to get your tattoos. And he tries to date himself to the Reformation, but But the Reformation, the Reformers would have loathed James White's theology. Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, all of them. Probably Tyndale as well. Anyway, let's keep going.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, I would love to, Sam. I would love to. I'm just going onto this one blind, though. I have not watched this yet, apart from like 30 seconds in the middle. But I will definitely touch base with you. God bless you, Sam. And I'm going to get back to this.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't even think I heard the name Augustine until I actually started to look into things.
Wow. Okay. All right. So when I don't remember the first thing that I saw with you. I don't remember if it. Have you done anything on presuppositionalism? Had somebody on to talk about that?
Richard Howe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that
Richard Howe on to talk about.
Was that.
I've never seen that show. I've never see. I don't follow. Okay, guys. God bless Sam. You have a good day, and everyone subscribe to Sam's channel. Really solid theology. He's a good brother. He's part of the Assyrian church, and he does good stuff with Islam, but like a lot of good stuff with the scriptures. He knows the scriptures like the back of his hand, and he hates liberalism when it comes to the Bible, and so do I, and I hope everyone here does as well. So yeah, subscribe to Sam's channel if you haven't. Lots of good stuff there. Lots of meat.
Was that before or after the discussion with the Matt fellow, the Roman Catholic fellow by the name of Matt? Because it's hard
Matt
for
Fradd.
me.
Oh, by the way, I met Matt Fradd in person. He's a good guy, Matt. Nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was before. So that one came out in 2019 or early 2020.
Hurry up,
Okay,
get to
all
the
right.
stuff. Get to
Okay,
the stuff.
because I was trying to remember what was the first thing that I'd run into from you. I don't spend a whole lot of time on YouTube, to be honest with you. If I see stuff, it's because somebody sends it to me. I'm a pastor of one of the pastors of a very, very active church.
There is something to be said about doing exegesis. White may have around doctrines of was here. Yeah, no, that's good. We all need to focus on the scriptures. We all, like me, I read the scriptures 30 minutes a day, but I spend 15 on each testament. But I got to say something. Unless you're going to debate someone who uses liberals, don't learn it from liberals. You got to learn it from Jerome, Venerable Bede, the scholastics. Like Aquinas has tons of commentaries on the Pauline epistles, known as Pure Copium. I like your name. Okay. By the way, I'm just wondering, how many do we got in the chat? If you're Catholic, put 1, Protestant 2. If you're Eastern Orthodox, 3. If you're something else, put 4.
You've probably heard of Apologia, but all the things that we're doing is just insane, and do a lot of traveling and doing the dividing line and everything else. I'm dependent upon other people to send me stuff, and so maybe the first thing was the thing with how. But then when you had the discussion, if I recall correctly, it was primarily, at least I commented primarily on John chapter 6. One of the things I said was, this fellow doesn't know his background. He doesn't know why he is what he is. And one of the things that would prompt that from me is, at least in my background, in my days, if you're going to be doing ministry online or whatever it is we call it today, that it's sort of important that you know where you stand, because when I first started dealing, Mormonism is what got me into apologetics in 1982, about 6 weeks after I got married. I was 19, she was 18. I met with my first 2 Mormon missionaries.
The fact that he's unfamiliar with someone as popular as Matt Fradd shows how out of touch he is with the current conservative. Yeah, no, because he's stuck in the 1990s. He thinks Catholic Answer is the avant-garde of Catholic apologetics, and it's not anymore. I'm not saying they're terrible or anything like that, but they're not the best we have to offer anymore. And they kind of have their niche market. They're like refuting like the kind of evangelicals who don't know anything because and they're preying on Catholics. So I mean, they still serve a purpose. I'm not, but he thinks they're like the elite. These are like the Swiss Guard of apologetics. No, it's not so true. Anyway,
in serious discussion 2 times in 1 week, elders Reed and Reese, and that's what eventually led to Alpha and Omega Ministries and going up to Salt Lake City every 6 months and debates up there and all the rest of that stuff and everything that Alpha and Omega has done since then, starting very, very early. And one of the first things that I recognized was if I'm going to be criticizing where they're coming from, their history of Joseph Smith, Joseph Smith's false prophecies, archaeology in the Book of Mormon, false prophecies into Doctrine and Covenants, whatever, then they're going to be asking questions about where I'm coming from. Now, I'm a PK, so I was raised a preacher's.
Okay, that's a good question. I don't want to pause it too often unless I'm commenting on the video, but White refused to debate Loft after numerous invites. I think he knows he would get destroyed. The whole reason and theology would destroy White. Lofton, Ibarra, what's his name, Albrecht, especially with the stuff Albrecht's done on the Marian doctrines. Amazing stuff. James White would get killed on that. That's why he doesn't debate them anymore. He'll have these cute little things with Trent Horn. But yeah, he's not going to debate R&T crew. Anyway. All right. We got to get through this.
Kid. And my dad went to Moody Bible Institute. And so I had a whole lot more than a lot of people did, but still, it was taking church history in seminary that just lit my fire and really gave me the opportunity of knowing where in the world we are in relationship to everything else. Thankfully, I had a really good church history professor. If I hadn't, who knows what I would have ended up doing or anything else. But, I've taught church history since 1990 now, and
guys, that is frightening. If you learn your church history from James White's online classes, stop. Because I mean, I'm sorry, but this guy is not qualified. He has read all of his stuff, his church history. I don't think he's read it. Like he's read Ignatius's epistles and Augustine's confessions and Saint Basil on the Holy Spirit and Athanasius. He's probably read those, but in terms, he gets everything from 19th century Protestants. I doubt he's read Eusebius, Theodoretus, Socrates, Sozomen, Evagrius, Theophanes, Paul the Deacon. I've read all that stuff. That's how I encourage people to do church history. And don't read Catholic scholars either. Don't read Catholic scholars either. Go to the source. To the sources, ad fontes, as the popular phrase means.
And I love it. But I also know that I'm weird for that. Most Protestants have no earthly idea where in the world they're coming from. And hence are not Protestants of conviction. They're just Protestants of, well, that's what I am. I don't know anything else. And so as I've been listening to the conversations that have been taking place, it's just been another example. It's not there's anything wrong with you. You just are very representative of a lot of people that just your back.
You're just so stupid, Cameron. You're not like me. I've
has not provided you with a foundation for knowing why you are what you are. You are.
I don't know how close Cameron Bertuzzi is to converting to Catholicism. Again, I don't follow him. But I'm going to say that after this interview, he's going to be closer than he was prior to this interview. Because James White has, frankly, become a Catholic apologist. He... So, I mean...
what you are by default, and therefore, when you run into new things, it's like, I've never heard of that before, and I have no earthly idea why I have not heard about it before, and I really don't know what to think about it.
Well, because you haven't read it.
That's what I was hearing in your first conversation with Matt. Am I wrong?
No.
Okay. All right. So Fast forward, you've now been meeting with people like.
Well, can I say something about that? Because
Sure,
I think
sure. Go ahead.
I think I have something that's relevant here. So, my mission with my channel with Capturing Christianity is to have experts like you on the channel, like people who are actually experts on the topics. So I come at this as a layman, and I let my audience know that up front. I'm a layman. I'm not an expert, and that's the point of the ministry. Is it's really to, I mean, the ultimate goal I would love to see my brother come back to Christ, but that's kind of why I do what I do. Is as a layman, is I don't have the degrees, I don't have the accolades, but what I can do is I can host an interview with an expert to get their ideas out to the public. So that's the vast majority of.
I know that's true. I have a lot of respect for that because I mean, there's stuff I don't know. Like I'll be honest, there is stuff. Oh, Phil, Vaisno Voskresy. I love Russian. Я говорю по-русски, потому что моя бабушка из Саратова на Волге. Понимаешь? Не знаю. All right. Enough with the Russian here.
What I do on my channel.
And yet
so
but you do have to have standards. I mean, you're not gonna present somebody as an expert who teaches at BYU, are you?
I don't even know.
Well, it depends. If I wanted to learn about Mormonism, I'd probably get someone from BYU. I mean, I want to learn about Mormonism from the Mormons and their documents, not from James White.
BYU is
Brigham Young University, the premier LDS school in Provo, Utah.
Oh, okay.
Provo.
Yeah. So probably not. Well, unless I was hosting a dialogue between someone from that university and like a Christian, that might be a case where I would have someone from.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to learn about Mormonism,
right.
Get the Mormons
but
on.
So there is you have to have some type of general idea of what defines the Christian faith, and that gives you your guidelines as to who you're going to have on and in what context, whether it's going to be a debate or whether you're going to be presenting someone as, hey, this guy has really good positive stuff that you can trust and things like that.
Yeah, and Scott Hahn is a good person for that. Scott Hahn, I don't agree with everything Hahn says, obviously. I don't even know why I have to say that, but no, he's a good source. He's a reputable scholar. If you want theology, he's not so much a church history guy, but
right. So that is an important aspect of things, and I sort of assumed that when I could be wrong in assuming that. I mean, YouTube has produced. You got to understand, when I did my first debate with Jerry Matitix at St. Cyprian's Catholic Church in Long Beach in August of 1990, there was no internet, despite what certain Democratic runners for the presidency may say. There was no internet, and there was no social media. There was something called BBSs. I'm sure you've never heard of that before, a bulletin board system. It would take 3 days for your messages to get back and forth between people, but I was part of it. I was.
There was no social
It was there,
media.
and it was interesting, and I put a lot of time into it. But anyway, there wasn't any of those types of things, and so if you were going,
because he was debating again. There's a lot more stuff translated now that we apologists have read. That's why.
To get out there and say something, you sort of had to build a foundation upon which to be able to do so. And now anybody, can throw things out there. And so YouTube has changed everything.
Oh, even I.
And so going back to the important aspect of these things. So I listened to what you were saying in that first conversation, and I'm functioning on the
which conversation?
The one with Matt on John 6 and stuff like that.
On the Eucharist.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm like, okay, so the standard historically from the Reformation and even beforehand stuff about this is not being brought up, and it's frustrating to me. And so that's why
James White's opinion is not being brought up, and that's what's frustrating him. That's what it is. You need my opinion on this. What I say these people believed. Anyway.
That's why someone sent it to me and said, you need to listen to this. And it's like, okay, well, it wasn't brought up then, so we'll bring it up because we've got a pretty decent audience. And so let's respond to it. Let's talk about these things, because I've been doing debates with Roman Catholics and we've been discussing John 6 since the 90s. And of course, we're just the current generation doing it. This has been going on. For example, have you ever read Calvin's correspondence with Cardinal Soteriology?
No.
Highly recommend it to you. It is.
I haven't read it either. But why would I read that? I can just go read John 6. I can go read John 6. I can see what the church fathers said about it. I can see what the holy saints of God said about it. And that's what I would do. Not trying to figure out John Calvin is debating some cardinal, but anyway, John Calvin, I'll admit I'm very underread on John Calvin. I have his Institutes. It's a big brick, but I don't know if I want to waste 800 pages of rating going into a guy who's, I don't want to be the judge of his soul, but I'm skeptical with, I'd be worried. I'd rather read something from a saint. Like, why would I back in the day, I read 2,000 pages of Martin Luther, and that was a waste of time. Yeah, he's an entertaining writer, but his theology is, man, it's probably better for your soul to read Harry Potter than read Martin Luther.
Right at the time of the Reformation, Soteriology was the Bishop of Geneva. Got kicked.
Repeating that real quick, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, Bishop Soteriology, I think it's Sadoleto. I could be wrong about that, but Bishop Soteriology. It's classic back and forth right at the raw time when people are dying on both sides.
Although I have read the biography of St. Francis de Sales, where he debated Theodore of Beza, who is Calvin's kind of protege in Geneva, and completely trounced him. But we'll see.
Of the Reformation. And
is this related to the Eucharist?
It covers a bunch of stuff. And the point is that these conversations that we're having have been had over and over and over again. But the vast majority of both Protestants and Catholics today were not connected enough with our history to know what resources are already there. So we're reinventing the wheel over and over again.
He's brought it up before.
I think I mentioned in my review, and I'm not sure if you...
I do want to say a lot more is available right now. Like the fact that we have, all right, I'm going to switch. Like for example, this is Constantinople II. Council with all the documents. The average person didn't have access to this in the days of John Calvin. Yeah, they probably had some documents, but this has all the encyclicals that the Pope wrote and the response to them and both constitutums. And I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think the average Protestant or Catholic had access to all of that stuff. And it's really a treasure trove what we have. A treasure trove. Anyway, how do we get back to? There we go. Back to James.
I would assume you have listened to.
You have watched the video more recently than I have.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about when I responded to you last week, and when you were on Trinity Radio.
Video, by the way.
Okay, I mentioned a bunch of resources, classic Protestant works.
This should be good.
Such as Good, Whitaker, Salmon. These are...
Salmon is a joke, guys. If you want to debate the papacy with me and you throw George Salmon arguments at me, prepare to get crushed. George Salmon says that Pope Agatha was the first person to use Luke 22:32 and apply it to the papacy. That is laughable. That's someone who doesn't know their stuff.
In-depth, scholarly, historical sources.
He sounds like Shabir Ali. Scholars. Got to read the scholars. Scholars!
that deal with the claims of Rome, the papacy, the early succession lists, just all sorts of stuff like the Chemnitz, the Lutheran version of that. What is that? 3 volumes, something like that. They're huge, massive resources.
I've never read Chemnitz. Again, I don't know if I want to spend that much time reading a multi-volume thing on Protestant theology. Same reason I don't read the Institutes. I just got better things to be reading. I read more historical stuff and scripture. That's what I read.
And yet, you probably wouldn't have found them in a Christian bookstore when there were Christian bookstores, which was a really nice day when we had Christian bookstores. We don't have them anymore, but
on Amazon.
But they're difficult to find even online and things like that. And so these conversations have happened before. And when we try to rebuild the wheel every generation, we don't necessarily do as well as the people
Look carefully
before us, to be perfectly honest with you.
Blinking
And so
code.
if you've sensed any frustration, it's because, man, there's so much out there. And I'm not sure that you're hearing all the sides and getting all the information, and even the direction that you're going with it, with the Bayesian analysis and so on and so forth. We need to get.
Okay, I got to admit that's stupid. His probability that the papacy is true, I really don't like. I've never even thought of that. Like, I've weighed like pro and against, but I've never come up with like 93.2% that the papacy is true, that this is true, that Mary's the mother of God. You know, this is all. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I got to side with Dr. White on this one. In fact, William Lane Craig tried to do this with in his debate with Bart Ehrman. He's putting mathematical equations that calculate the probabilities of God's existence. And I don't like I'm not convinced. Sorry. Cameron's a nice guy. Dr. Craig is a nice guy. But these arguments are terrible. Bayesian analysis on fragmentary ancient historical documents is an absolute horrible idea. Yeah, I agree, Other Paul. I agree. You can't put these things on a probability. Like,
get into that. When you listened to my response last week, did you?
To be fair, I'll just say I didn't listen to the whole thing. I listened to most of it. So
okay,
I missed the resource. Did you? The resources list? Did you mention
well,
that at the very
I
end
mentioned,
of the stream?
Well, one of the things I said was I was sort of speaking to you, and I said, so if this is how we're doing things, because did you hear the discussion of Isaiah 22?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I said was, okay, if this is functioning in this major way for you, have you looked at these multi-volume historical resources from the other side? Such as Whitaker, Good, Chemnitz, Salmon.
Oh, there we go.
Are any of those names even familiar to you?
Most of them, no.
Okay. So I could.
I am familiar. I am familiar though with the objections that you gave in the show.
Okay, but
which he gets from Good and Salmon and all that.
So,
or at least I heard those from a guy named Gavin Ortland. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have.
He's been the guy who's like him and another guy have been the two main people that I've been gleaning from in terms of their objections to this typological argument.
Right. And so basically what I had said was, what if I had held this bunch of
I've seen him use that book in a debate. I wonder what
photocopies that I had bound years and years ago, patristic sources, stuff out of Minge and stuff like that, in regards to papacy, Eucharistic subjects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And basically I had said, what if there's 3 pages in here that completely change all the calculations, but you've never seen them?
I really wish we wouldn't be talking about this calculations. I mean, if you want to argue for the papacy or for sola scriptura, fine, let's duke it out. But I mean, Bayesian. I got to agree. Dr. White is right on this. You can't really do this kind of mathematics. Heck, and I'm an engineer by trade, Math is my life. But I mean, yeah.
and was raising the issue of, these are the issue of the papacy is an issue of ultimate authority. Once you accept the validity of the papacy, all your calculations have to go from 92% to 100%. You understand?
Well, in all fairness, he was talking about the probability of the papacy being true. So I mean, he hasn't fully committed to the papacy yet.
Understand that?
I think that's false.
Okay, so when the Bishop of Rome, when the Second Vatican Council identifies as perverse opinions anything other than what they say, and that is that the Bishop of Rome is the infallible vicar of Christ on earth, and everything else is a perverse opinion. So you can only be 92.
I think he's talking about Vatican I. I don't think he's talking about Vatican II, because Vatican II was more friendlier than that.
And then they anathematize even thinking
Vatican I.
Opposite to that. Now again, you'll find, trust me, Roman Catholics today, especially in the United States, and especially with the Pope that we have today,
the thing that's funny, I mean, of course, I've heard Jay Dyer say that, Francis is the best Orthodox apologist. I even heard recently a Muslim YouTube channel trying to scoop traditional Catholics. It's like, traditional Catholics, your Pope doesn't like your Mass, but he doesn't like tradition, but become a Muslim, we're traditional, so pretty much all the enemies of Christ Church are tapping into the whole Francis. It's a very lazy way to try to refute the Catholic Church, because Francis, like the previous 265 popes, or I guess 264 because Pope Benedict's still alive, is going to die, and we will have a new pope.
I personally don't think that Francis believes what Vatican I said. So that's a whole other issue that does need to be discussed. But when you read what was being written in 1870 by the people who defined these things, it's very clear exactly what they meant and exactly what the anathema meant.
Exactly.
And I know today it's sort of like, well, it just means you don't get to be in our club. That's not what it meant to them. And that's one of the issues is I don't even know how you could start plugging this kind of stuff into any kind of formula so as to have any meaningful impact.
Why are we debating this stupid formula? Why can't we actually have a discussion on the issues? He has a formula for the papacy probability. Can't we talk about the papacy, not the formula? Hopefully we get to that soon.
Upon making a decision about the claims of Rome, because history doesn't work that way. And it would require you personally to have more knowledge than any human being could ever possess in this life, because there's tons of stuff that I've read, and then there's tons of stuff I haven't read. So
Bayes, there may be a misunderstanding about what Bayes is. It's not like you don't have to consider everything.
Okay, this is an excellent point. No, he hasn't. Maybe Vatican I don't know, but he never quoted Gasser's Relatio. I've searched it on his page, aomin.org. He has never quoted it. And that document was the official interpretation of Vatican I, and it was so important, it's even quoted in Vatican II, Lumen Gentium. That's how important it is. It even made it into an ecumenical council. But has he read it? No, he probably doesn't even know what it is. But he's the supposed expert on all this stuff. James White needs to forget everything thinks he knows about the papacy, and go and listen to what Elijah Yossi said, who has read that document more than... He's read that document like 20 times. James White doesn't even know it exists, probably.
In order to get a final analysis, in the same way that, your objection to my methodology would apply to any methodology that you use, because I think in every case, there's always going to be something that you could have read that would impact your probabilistic judgments, even if you don't use Bayes, if you use just abductive reasoning more generally.
Yep.
I think that you're still going to run into that issue. So I'm not exactly sure. Like, what is your objection here? Is it?
You know, it's very rare that James White has someone like Cameron on. So can't they just debate the issues instead of the stupid form? We all agree the formula is stupid. Okay, I got a question for all 18 of you watching. Put a 1 if you think his Bayesian formula probability thing is a good thing. Put a 2 if you think it's stupid like me. Put a 3 if you either don't know or don't have an opinion in the chat.
2 bays, or is it 2, like, anyone coming to a final assessment of the papacy?
It's a recognition that the claim of the papacy is absolutely ultimate, and therefore it cannot be a matter of, okay, 92% is good enough. Rome doesn't say 92% is good enough. That's not what Vatican I says.
Because we don't
now
talk
you'll
about
find
probability.
You'll find lots of folks who are saying, "Come on over." No, you don't have to. You can have disagreements. It's okay. Look at all the people that disagree today, and they don't get kicked out, so on and so forth. I get it, but that's not what the people who wrote those words originally intended. And the point is, once you accept that ultimate epistemological commitment, then all the other stuff is now going to follow through with that.
Well, in all fairness, he's applying this to the papacy. He said the papacy was like 93.8%, or I can't remember what number he had. That probability that it's true. So I mean, yes, he might raise everything else to 100% if he accepts the papacy. But I mean, but we all agree, and I think most of the chat agrees with me. Look, that this is dumb. It's dumb. Please get to the issues. I don't want.
So. Bodily assumption of Mary. Now it's, are you going to do you can't, once you accept the papacy, you can't do an analysis of the historical evidence of the bodily assumption of Mary, because that's now.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of non-Catholics tend to think that our church is the papacy and nothing else. We've had 21 or 22 ecumenical councils. And it's not the Pope just talking. It's all the bishops talking. Or all the ones that are invited to the council, which is usually in the hundreds. So, I mean, we are a collegial church. The Pope plays a role, but it's a role. We're a church of many bishops, not one. Yeah. All right.
Well, given what you did before, right?
Well, no, I think that's false, because I don't think, I used to think this. I used to think that once you had the papacy, Catholicism just fell out of it. But it was actually a Protestant friend of mine that showed me, actually, Catholicism doesn't necessarily follow if the papacy is true, because it doesn't even entail that Linus was like the second pope. So it could be the case that the papacy is true, but then no one just fulfilled that role. And that, I think that actually depends on the way that we define the papacy, because if we define the papacy in a way that it doesn't entail that Linus is the second pope, then we don't actually get that line from Linus into the other popes. So I just don't think that the papacy entails Catholicism. I think that you can have, so what I would do is I still think that that's like, you need to assess the probability of the assumption of Mary in your overall calculation of the probability of Catholicism. So I think that would just go in a different place in the equation. It's not that it's irrelevant at all to the probability of Catholicism being true.
You don't see the authority of the papacy as being central in the definition of the bodily assumption?
I do. I think supremacy is one of the parts of the papacy.
And how would you define? See, you've lost me now, because I've debated the papacy with numerous Roman Catholic apologists, and none of them took your position. So.
By the way, when is the last time James White actually debated the papacy? There's been a lot of stuff out since then. I think it's need of a new debate. He hasn't debated Ibarra or Lofton or me or Elijah Yassi or William Albrecht. We've got new names on the papacy. And if James White wants to come on, he probably doesn't. He's blocked me on all social media, but he's welcome to come on and discuss the papacy with me. Throw your best, James. I know what your best is.
I'm just trying to figure out what it means, because
Sure. I mean, I
as-
can define the papacy for you the way that
Okay.
I've defined it. So there's three different elements, and one of the elements I was talking with a Catholic last night about, and he's kind of like, I don't know. Anyways, but I'll give you the three elements that I'm currently working with. So succession, infallibility, and supremacy. So those are the three different elements of the papacy. So if you have those three elements, you have the papacy. But I don't think you necessarily have Catholicism, because that from those three elements, it doesn't entail that Linus was the second pope, or that, you know, all on down the line that these people making these pronouncements or these claims, it doesn't entail that those are actually true. I think if the papacy is true, then we do have like some really good reason to think that Catholicism would be true. But that's where additional evidence, like you said, the Assumption of Mary, if you think that that's really improbable, that could be an argument against Catholicism later on, but it's not necessarily an argument against the papacy.
Now, one of the things that okay, you realize that once you become a Roman Catholic, you don't get to define these things. Rome does, right?
Define what things?
All of these things. So in other words, the dogmatic writings of the church define what the papacy is, and that it is of necessity directly connected to Peter as the first pope and the succession of authority through his successors. And you don't get to go, you know, I'm not sure we can really do that. I mean, certainly there's really good evidence that there wasn't a monarchical episcopate in Rome until 140. And
oh, there we go. By the way, I know that the other Paul just had a video with this. I've only seen about an hour and a half. I do plan on watching it all. By the way, go see my two videos. I did one on reason and theology, one on Sam Shamoon's channel addressing this issue. I will return to the video.
You know, you got the pornocracy. You got
what does a pornocracy have to do with anything? It was a weak point in the papacy, just like we're in a weak point in the papacy now. In fact, I am going to write my an article I plan to write is about the reform popes. And if you notice, the big reform popes come about every 500 years. You have Pope Gregory the Great in the late 6th century. You have Pope Gregory the 7th in the late 11th century. Pope Pius V in the late 16th century. We should be having the next reform pope soon. He by soon, I mean in the next 40, 50 years. He's probably in seminary right now. But yeah, like right now we're at, you know, a sore spot. The last reforms, successful reforms, are no longer valid. You know, the world has changed. Like there was nothing wrong with Gregory the 7th, his reforms. But by the time you get to the 1500s, they don't fit anymore. Not because the church has changed, but because things around it have changed, and you need to communicate that in the next in the current society.
You got the Babylonian captivity of the church. You've got popes anathematizing other.
I don't know why the Babylonian. I mean, it just a huge deal. I mean, I think the Archbishop of well, okay,
popes.
I'll get to that later. I've got an idea. I got an impression that he's going to get more into that later. What is up, Gabe? God bless you, brother. I like your icon of Francis de Sales. We talked about him lately.
You got Honorius. Oh, good grief.
Oh, I got a whole refutation called Shred Hour where I deal with James White's Honorius stuff. And Honorius isn't even the best argument, but
for 400 years, every pope that took the chair of Peter had to anathematize Honorius as a heretic, as the Bishop of Rome. These are the things that made Cardinal Newman go, yeah, no, I don't think so. And hence developed the development hypothesis.
Okay, so the development the other Paul has a funny video on this. Slap the Newman on it. Slap Newman. Let me say something about this. And the thing I'm about to bring up is I don't think anyone has brought this up. I don't think anyone has brought this up before. Newman's thesis isn't infallible dogma. It's an opinion. Have you guys ever thought of that? It's not dogma. Yes, he is a canonized saint, but his view on the development is an opinion. It's not a dogma. And I mean, I think it's ironic that the people James White debates in debate don't say, well, Newman, you know, like he just says that about them. All right.
This, which I haven't asked you about.
Okay, guys, I don't think we're 25 minutes in. This thing's over an hour long. We're probably not going to get there, but I'm going to keep going for a bit. I'm also getting hungry, and it's after 7 o'clock here. I haven't eaten supper. Anyway,
Yes, but I need to. I mean, there's just so much here, but Rome is the one that gets to define what Roman Catholicism is. I mean,
Well,
I
we at
sound
least
like
get
a real conservative Roman Catholic here, but the fact is, without those claims, there is no essence to Roman Catholicism. That's why there are a lot of people that have been looking at Francis going, this is a disaster, because he's who am I to judge? Well, we thought you were the infallible.
Well, in all fairness, that was not that scandalous. That was abused, that who am I to judge thing, but
Vicar of Christ. We're confused here.
There's way worse things than the who am I to judge. That's pennies.
I mean, I can debate a conservative Roman Catholic that actually accepts the claims of Unum Sanctum or the Council of Trent or the Papal Syllabus of Errors or things like that, because those are objectively clear, definable. That the documents have a history behind them, so on and so forth. I can't debate liberal Roman Catholics. I did a debate on the.
No matter what you are, liberals are worthless, in my opinion. That's why I don't read them. Sometimes you got to read them, but like I hate doing it because it's just like it's like chewing on tinfoil. It's like drinking. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy, but it's not. It's not pleasant at all. Oh, hey, Elijah.
On the papacy back in 93, or I think it was 94, at Boston College, and I could just tell looking
at who it was with.
Well, I did two. I did two debates with Jerry Matitix, and then I did a 2-on-2 debate with Scott Butler and Robert Sungenis. And you
By the way, would you be interested in doing a dialogue with Jimmy Akin on my channel?
Depends on what the subject is. We tried to arrange debates on Sola Scriptura and things like that. I think
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I want to say an opinion. I hate debating tradition versus Sola Scriptura. I'm so bored of that. I mean, there's a million debates out there, and like I'm just bored with that. Like I don't. I'm sorry. It's important, but it's the last thing I want to debate. If someone wants to debate that with me, I guess I'll do it because I have to. But yeah, no, it's Jerry Matitix drinking. Don't forget Father Mitch Pacwa. Oh man, he likes talking about that. He does not talk about the debates where he did bad. He's not throwing out the Sungenis debate where he got smoked on Honorius. Oh, that was good. And then he complained that he's like, oh, but the last Catholic apologist I debated on this had a different argument than you, and I knew how to respond to that, but I don't know how to respond to yours. Anyway, let's get back to this. What debate are you talking about? Something to do with Aiken? Anyway, look, I don't like how Jimmy Aiken defends theistic evolution. Like, if you saw his debate with Gideon Lazar, who I had on my channel, by the way, it's so like Jimmy Aiken was just using terrible arguments. I'm sorry, Jimmy, I like you, but stop defending evolution for frig's sakes.
Last time we had any conversation, I was like, let's talk. We need to talk about Francis, and everything sort of died at that point because no one wants to talk about Francis.
Argument. The Muslims do that. As I said, it's a French video. If you don't understand French, you're not going to understand it. But I mean, they're saying, oh yeah, become Muslim. Francis doesn't like your tradition, you know. So, yeah.
And I understand why. I wouldn't want to talk about Francis, especially when Jimmy Aiken and I were on the Bible Answer Man together, and that was during John Paul II. And if you want to talk about differences, there they are. We can talk about the difference between John Paul II and Francis, but that's he and I.
So are you saying Francis is going to be Pope for all eternity? Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. Yeah, I know he has. He does not debate our top apologist. He debates Catholic answers. And I'm not knocking Catholic answers, but like things have changed so much since the 90s. He lives in this kind of fantasy world. Anyway, back to
the point is,
by the way,
things have changed in the current situation, and you can find Roman Catholics who are at Boston College. They don't believe anything. You'll find Roman Catholics at Boston College do not believe the bodily assumption of Mary is de fide dogma for anything in the world. Okay?
Well, okay. Can you throw out some names so we can take a look at their stuff? I know he likes doing this mockery. But, yeah, if you want yeah, anyway.
But I'm simply saying when it was defined in the middle of the last century, the people that defined it actually believed that it is de fide. It is by faith, a part of the deposit of faith, and it must be.
And by the way, it's so interesting that if you take the document where it's defined and they throw all the evidence for it, there's been a lot more evidence uncovered for it since then, which shows that they were onto something and they didn't know as much.
Believed, and they attached an anathema to it for a reason. And so, basically what I'm saying is I don't know what there is to convert to if you're not actually converting to Roman Catholicism that is a full-throated embracement of everything that Rome actually teaches. Now, it may be a bad time to do it because, like I said, I don't think the Pope believes all that right now. I really don't. But, that's one of the issues. So
I think if you accept the papacy, you're probably going to be a Catholic. I think that's true.
A Catholic as in Boston College Catholic, or a Catholic as in actually taking seriously the authority claims of the magisterium of the Roman Catholic Church?
The latter.
Okay. All right. I would agree that it follows, and that's why I said we don't get to define these things. Rome already has. And
I'm actually using the Vatican I definition.
And the Vatican I definition would include as a part of what was that? Pastor Aeternos. Yeah, Pastor Aeternos specifically identifies the giving of the privilege, the keys to Peter, as being separate from the other apostles and being in supremacy.
Where is that in Vatican I?
That's in Pastor Aeternos. I could actually probably have it in one of my documents here. I read it. Yeah, here it is.
I mean,
here it is. I can read it. Do you want it?
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
We therefore teach and declare that according to the testimony of the gospel, the primacy and jurisdiction of the universal church of God was immediately and directly promised and given to blessed Peter the apostle by Christ the Lord. For it was to Simon alone, to whom he had already said, You shall be called Cephas, that the Lord, after the confession made by him, saying, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, addressed these solemn words, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, because flesh and blood have not revealed it to thee, but my Father who is in heaven. I say to thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, and I will give to thee. And I just point out, stopping, doso is future. I will give, not I am.
No one ever uses this argument. This is some modern argument that James White uses. I will give. Yeah, well, to Peter, exactly.
Giving, it doesn't point that out here. I will give.
Well, then when did it happen? I know he says it happens in Matthew 18, but Matthew 18 doesn't mention the keys. Okay, guys, for the people out there who think, and I know James White's one of them, that Matthew 18 kind of spreads out Matthew 16 and neutralizes any significance of Peter, take a look, go and read Matthew 16 and write down everything they say. The keys, the rock, the church, the binding and loosing. Then go to Matthew 18 and write everything down. Almost everything apart from binding and loosing is missing.
To you, the keys to the kingdom of heaven.
But James White won't tell you that.
Whatever you shall bind on earth, so on and so forth. And it was, continuing the quote, and it was upon Simon alone that Jesus, after his resurrection, bestowed the jurisdiction of chief pastor and ruler over all his fold in these words, feed my lambs, feed my sheep, which, by the way, the early church never interpreted that way.
Yes, they did.
At open variance with this clear doctrine of Holy Scripture, as it has been ever understood by the Catholic Church, are the perverse opinions of those who, while they distort the form of government established by Christ.
Oh, by the way, speaking of that, I heard Mike Wenger once say that Pope Agatha was the first to apply John 21 to the papacy, the feed my lambs, feed my sheep. And yeah, that's just not true. Again, Mike Wenger's not an expert on this, but at least he doesn't pretend to be like White.
Lord in his church. Deny that Peter, in his single person, preferably to all the other apostles, whether taken separately or together, was endowed by Christ with a true and proper primacy of jurisdiction, or of those who assert that the same primacy was not bestowed immediately and directly upon blessed Peter himself, but upon the church, and through the church on Peter as her minister, end quote.
So is your point that Matthew 18 also gives the keys to the rest of the apostles? So is that where you would go next?
Well, where I
yes, he will. Oh, this is gonna
would go next would be, okay, given that Doso is future, then when...
All right, see you, brother. God bless. And I will finish your 4-hour video. I will. I just got a lot on my plate right now, but I'll get to it. Yeah. Anyway.
When did Peter receive these keys? And there's only
Matthew 18 says nothing about receiving the keys.
Two options. Either it's Matthew 18, and hence it's with all the other apostles in contradiction to Vatican I.
Well, there's no keys mentioned there.
Pastor Eternus.
Again, read them side by side, mark down all the stuff.
Or Matthew didn't even record it for us. It was so unimportant that it doesn't even show up in the scriptural record. Those are the...
I do got to admit, Father James, it's kind of a gong show, this thing. That's why I'm having some fun. I'm probably not going to finish it. I'm not even half done. I'm about 40% through, and I've been at this over an hour.
The only options you've got. The problem is this document claims that this understanding, this is a clear doctrine of Holy Scripture, quote, as it has been ever understood by the Catholic Church. Those are untrue words. They're not true words.
Who?
And yet, these are the words that...
Okay, throw out the argument, because like he's just making statements. So, like, I need an argument to
carry the anathema. And they are what you would have to submit yourself to be a...
I mean, I've watched his debates. I know where he'll go. And I've listened to the dividing line.
Self-consciously believing Roman Catholic. Now, what percentage of Roman Catholics in the world have ever read Pastor Eternus?
Oh, who's doing the percentage now? And you've never read the Relatio. You just read...
I don't know. Certainly less than 5%.
Would this be the early church mothers? We always talk about the early church fathers. Zing! Oh, that was a dumb joke. Anyway. And by the way, you don't need to read Vatican I to be a Catholic. You technically don't even need to read the scriptures. You'll hear them in church. But no one has to be a scholar the same way you don't need to read Vatican II or Nicaea or whatever. I mean, for people who are trying to come to the Catholic faith, I'd say read this. This is the most important book to be a Catholic, The Imitation of Christ. This book was written in 1420. It's 600 years old. It's almost as popular as the Bible is. You need to not read them to be a Roman Catholic. Well, amazingly, it's the most hardcore Catholics that have read them. I mean, I've read them, but this is the most important book. This book is more important than Vatican I, because this is how you connect to God, the spiritual life of the church. So if a person's inquiring to me, no matter what background they're from, I'm like, go read this book. Go read, Saint Therese of Lisieux, Augustine's Confessions. Like, go read that stuff. Pray the Rosary. Read the Scripture, and that's what. If you got questions about the technical stuff, you can always come to me or another apologist, or read all those. This book is The Imitation of Christ. It's called My Imitation of Christ, but The Imitation, My Imitation by Thomas A. Kempis. Thomas A. Kempis. Well, keep in mind, Father James, the guy who wrote this. I know you'll dispute Augustine, but this guy was a rank Romanist, like as Romanist as you can get. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. Okay, where do I? Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, I know that's one of the things to read, the spiritual works. And then if you want, then get to Trent and Vatican I and all that stuff, because you need to be a spiritual person to understand the theology. Because you need to read Timothy Flanders' book. In fact, you don't need to read his book. Watch his interview on my channel where he talks about a theologian being a man who prays, who's connected to God. Now you have all these Bible commentators who are probably sodomites, but they have a bunch of degrees, so we have to take them seriously. I'm not knocking having degrees, but if you're not connected to God, you have no business writing commentaries. Why would I want to learn about the Gospel of John from someone who's in hell? Why? I don't. I don't think you do either. Someone we know is in hell. Anyway, I am going to get back to... Yes. I've never read that book. I know Gavin Ortland likes it, though, and I know you reviewed it on your channel. Anyway, back to Mr. White and Bertuzzi.
I would assume, okay? But you're talking about embracing something as having ultimate epistemological authority. And so you don't get to be, I was just raised with it, I don't know. You're going in it with your eyes open. So that's a different, I think that's a completely different situation. And so this is just one of the many issues. I mean, the fact of the matter is, go ahead.
That's actually a great segue, if you don't mind. I wanted to, one of my goals in our conversation today was, I mean, in line with my channel's goals, and I want to like have experts on and get their views and everything. It'd be great.
Okay, I've got another question. Put in the chat, put a 1 if you watch his channel on a regular basis. Put 2 if you watch it now and then. Put 3 if you don't watch it at all. I'm talking about Cameron Bertuzzi's channel.
To like run through a list of your top objections to Catholicism.
Actually, I really want to, most people want to hear from you, and they want to hear us talking. We'll do that. I had a sort of semi-viral blog post a number of years ago in response to somebody who was converting, and it was my top 10 reasons to question Roman Catholic Church. I'll send that to you, and maybe if Rich could look it up and maybe send me the link, I can provide it to you. But the two things, we've already been touching on the first thing in regards to papacy, because that's what you were talking about on Trinity Radio, and that's what people are hearing, and that's what they want to know more about. I want to make sure that we really cover that, and then I do want to ask, before we wrap up, I want to ask what your understanding now is and what it was from your church, or whether your church just didn't talk about it. And that is in regards to the soteriological issue of how you have peace with God. Because I know that a lot of charismatic churches aren't necessarily overly focused upon systematic theology, and especially upon a particularly robust soteriology. And so I want to get to that. But let me just ask a couple other issues. I ran through some things, and I just want to know if you have plugged these into your calculations. Did you
That's funny. Now, yeah, like a lot of like peace with God in these charismatic churches is questionable because they have quote unquote born again experiences. Now, these are often wrong. Born again experience happens when you're baptized. That was my born again experience, when the water touched me and the words were recited and I was regenerated. That's what it is. It's not I bowed down, got on my knees and gave my life to Christ. No, that's important, but it's not the born again experience. All right.
Consider the rather strong evidence that exists right now that there was no monarchical episcopate in Rome for the first until about 140 AD.
Let me say, first of all, I got 2 multi-hour long videos on this, one on Reason and Theology, the other on Sam Shamoun's channel. And I'm just going to say, why didn't, because by the 4th century, they all believed in the early monarchical episcopate. And I'm just going to give one objection. They read all those documents that James White will point to. They read Ignatius. Oh, he doesn't mention the Bishop of Rome. How come they didn't do that? When people like the Arians disputed the Pope's authority, Pope Julius in the 340s, how come they didn't say, no, there was no monarchical bishop until the 2nd century, therefore you don't have a leg to stand on? Like, we all have, guys, I'm going to say, Protestants in the chat, I love you. I love your respect for Scripture and Jesus, but please don't use this argument. Oh, man. Anyway, keep going.
Yep.
And I'm sorry?
Yep.
Okay. And that, how can you avoid, I guess, can you avoid a subjective analysis of historical data in creating your probabilities?
Well, can you?
Oh, we're back to the stupid formula stuff. Oh, man. Guys, I'm really angry at this formula stuff.
No, I'm asking you because I don't use statistical analysis.
I don't think anyone can. I don't think anyone can.
So you're assigning, now, the system you're examining tells you as it has been ever understood by the Catholic Church. So there is no opportunity for anything other than a 100% probability from Rome's perspective. So if you're assigning anything less than that, you're actually in rebellion against Rome to do so. I thought I'd point that. In other words, your calculations, once you step over that line, have to change. You don't have the right any longer to have that subject.
Well, first of all, he's not over the line yet, so he has the subjectivity. But again, I hate this stupid. I agree. Heck, I have an engineering degree. I have 6 university-level math courses under my belt, and I've used math and many more. And I don't even want to do this unless I'm doing something for work, you know.
Activity. Do you say that you still think you could go against this and be a faithful Catholic?
What do you mean by go against? So I would just take a different interpretation of it is known in every age. I would take an interpretation of like there's a way of talking like everybody knows this, but it's not like everyone actually knows it. It's just like a saying. So that's kind of the way that I view this, is that it's because they were aware. This was written, Vatican I was written, in the 50s? So they're very aware of
1870.
Oh, 1870. Completely wrong.
1950 is about an assumption.
Okay. So they knew about the Protestants, and so it just strikes me as a charitable interpretation.
Wait a minute. I don't think they're talking about Protestants. It says.
Well, keep in mind that Vatican I. Now, there's an interesting reason why the papacy was not discussed in the Council of Trent, and that is because you had fragile political alliance, and they didn't want to piss off the French, who were Gallican or Proto-Gallican, if I want to be specific. They had the spirit of Gallicanism that came from well, from a lot of monarchs, Pope King Philip the Fourth, King Philip the First. I didn't know how bad Philip the First was until recently, and also Charlemagne. He was Caesaro-Papist to the core. I know the Franks were Germanic, but you know, a lot of that blood got mixed over time. Anyway,
as it has been ever understood by the Catholic Church. So trust me, I'll at least give you the interpretation that has been given to me by all the Roman Catholics I've debated on the papacy, which includes Mitch Pacwa and other people. And by the way, if you've not heard my debates with Mitch, I highly recommend them to you. Mitch is a great guy. And the thing that I loved about doing 5 debates with Mitch Pacwa is he never played games. He never...
you know, he played games, meaning he did well against Pacwa. If he doesn't do well, they were playing games.
Never pulled punches. He never engaged in cheap debating tricks. They were just respectful, straightforward. And there's a couple times where you'll just break out laughing because we all did, which was neat. But anyways, I wish you could watch all of them, but the first 2, though they were videotaped, we were never given the videotapes of them to make available. So that's a sad situation.
Okay, I want to say something about this, Father James. I don't know a lot about Bertuzzi, but I'm not going to change my opinion on him because of this mathematical thing. He's making a mistake with this math equation thing. But I'm thirsty. I need water. He's making a mistake, but I'm not going to say, well, he's an idiot just because of this. But he is wrong about this.
But you can listen to them.
Yeah.
But
so going back to this question of like 100% certainty. So I'm not a infallibilist with respect to knowledge. I don't think that knowledge.
I don't like I've nothing against him personally, but I don't think he's a good representative or apologist. He's a liberal. Now, he's not as liberal as the other Jesuits, but he is a liberal.
It has to be 100% certain in order to constitute knowledge.
Okay, but what Rome is claiming is that
it was known in every age by the Catholic Church.
It has been ever understood by the Catholic Church. And what I was saying is the claim that was made to me. Well, I'll give you an example. Every time when I was when Jerry Matitix and I were debating the early church and the Marian dogmas initially on Long Island, I kept bringing up people who contradicted what Rome is teaching, and he would say, "Well, that's not tradition."
But I doubt James White has actually done the primary source research, because I pretty much exposed that he's got everything from quote mines, and I have, and he learns everything from modern Protestants. Well, the Protestants of the 19th and 20th century don't think the early church taught that. Wow, man, what would we do without that? You know, I mean, so that's why I'm encouraging everyone to read the Eusebius, Socrates, Sozomen, all those people. No, I'm not talking about these. Thinking Vatican I was in the not knowing about Babylonian thinking you can effectively be a 2,000-year-old set of Acanthus as an RC. Yeah, okay. Okay, all right, fair enough. I'll have to go watch some of the replay on that. Who are some of the big names in the chat? If there were no big names, that was... okay, let's go back. All right.
So when an early church father says something that Rome doesn't agree with, well, that's not tradition. But when they do, it is tradition.
Well, no Catholic I know of thinks the church fathers haven't said things that are against established church doctrine. Like, for example, Saint Cyril of Jerusalem didn't believe that Apocalypse, also known as Revelation, was part of the biblical canon. Also, who believes Gregory of Nyssa's view on hell? I mean, yeah, that happens. Things like that happen. But what White is trying to say is, they're legislating from the bench, and no, they do serious scholarship.
And so the idea being, well, every patristic source we find that agrees with us, that's great, and we know there are patristic sources that disagree with us. That's just not tradition. So it's just dismissed by an anachronistic filter that's placed upon history by later generations that no one at the time of the writing could have ever even dreamed of. And so when they say, as it has been ever understood by the Catholic Church,
he's going to need to give some examples.
That in essence requires you to remove Cyprian from the Catholic Church.
Cyprian. Oh, man. That's St. Cyprian. Okay, I recommend go see my papacy response to Gavin Ortland. And basically all the later documents say that Pope Stephen won that, and Pope Stephen had the papal interpretation. Stephen was vindicated, and that was the view of Matthew 16 and the papacy that made it into the ecumenical council. So take that.
That requires you to, if you've read the dispute about Sermon 131 and Augustine and Zosimus and Pelagius and the...
Really? That is just sad. He gets this from George Salmon, by the way. George Salmon is the only one. Yeah, that's what everyone remembers. Who won this debate? Stephen did. And Stephen's a saint, both East and West. Oh, anyway. To remove all the Reformation into Vatican I, I can't believe you can't grant that a matter of the Orthodox position has always been Orthodox. Big deal. Okay, here we go.
North African bishops. And the fact that that when the Bishop of Rome told the North African bishops to change course, the North African bishops told him to go take a flying leap. And he did.
Okay. I got an objection. How about people after Vatican I who told the Pope the same thing? Archbishop Lefebvre, he believed in papal infallibility. Archbishop Vigano, he believed in papal infallibility. But they did the same thing. It was the same thing back then. They believed in it, but they opposed them for one reason or another. Maybe it was a good reason. Maybe it was a bad reason.
They didn't understand it that way. Cyprian didn't understand it that way. Tertullian didn't understand it that way. Ignatius didn't understand it that way.
Really? We only have 7 epistles from Ignatius. That's all we know. He's read liberals on the early church. He does not read the early church fathers for the most part. I don't think I honestly question if he has read Eusebius. I honestly question that. Or Socrates, or Sozomen, or Evagrius, or Theodoretus, or Theophanes, Paul the Deacon, name all these people.
And so all of a sudden they're not in the Catholic Church anymore. And yet they're claimed to be in Tertullian, dies the heretic later on, but they're claimed to be in the Catholic Church. So it is this massive redefinition and rereading with a lens, an anachronistic lens. So you have to put this lens in front of your face, and then you look back and go, oh, we've always believed this. When in point of fact, that's not what history shows. It doesn't. It shows it in all these different ways. Are you familiar with the Sixth Canon of the Council of Nicaea?
Do you mind if we finish what we were originally discussing about the known and every? Because I thought you were saying. Yeah,
because he just threw all this out. It's like, whoa, let's get back to
that. My Bayesian analysis is flawed in some way because it was understood and known in every age. I have to get to 100% certainty in order for this to actually work. But I just can't see why that would be the case.
But the point is that if your analysis gets you to 95%, so that you go, okay, I accept that claim.
We're back to the
formula.
Now
accept that claim means to accept the words of the papacy. And now that means you have to switch from 95 to 100 because it's saying it's perverse opinions of those who, while they just.
And in all fairness, White didn't bring this up. Man, I'm thirsty.
Distort the form of government established by Christ and Lord's church, deny that Peter in his single person. What if your analysis says, well, actually, I agree with John Henry Cardinal Newman. This was the result of the development of doctrine over the ages, and the early church didn't believe this. It's clearly seen in the fact that when Irenaeus told Victor, the Bishop of Rome, to cool his jets when Victor threatened to excommunicate the Eastern bishops over the Quartodeciman controversy.
And Pope's advisors tell him to do not to do stuff all the time. Let me share you something that a lot of people forget about in this episode. If you read a few chapters down in Eusebius, he actually excommunicates the Bishop of Constantinople. What was his name? Vic. I'm getting a call from he I think it was Theodotus of Byzantium. I think that's who was excommunicated by the Pope. Yes, he was excommunicated, and you can read this in Eusebius. That's what everyone remembers. They all remember Pope Victor with the Saint Irenaeus with the Quartodecimans. They never bring up Theodotus of Byzantium, and I'm guessing because no one's read Eusebius.
Very clearly, Irenaeus didn't believe that Victor was infallible or had the right to do this. He told him, "Cool your jets. You're one bishop amongst many." And
he doesn't say you're one bishop amongst many. And if he didn't have the power, why does he excommunicate Theodotus of Byzantium? Now, Byzantium is on the other side of, it's a long way away. It's not in the Bishop of Rome's jurisdiction, or what would later become patriarchal jurisdictions. Oh, hey, Mango. Hey, Mango.
You can look at that, and it sounds like what you're telling me is you can go, well, yeah, I can still recognize that. I don't have to change my views on that, but I can still accept the papacy as a generally valid concept. The papacy says, nope, we are.
Is that what Cameron's saying? I don't even think he's saying that. I mean, yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why I show Theodotus of Byzantium, where he actually excommunicates him. Again, Byzantium is the old name for Constantinople, which is the old name for Istanbul. There was an excommunication there.
We are the final authority. There is no authority beyond the papacy. And therefore, all the calculations you come up with, if it's at 95, you automatically have to just go, I'm now at 100 because the papacy says so. It's the ultimate authority. I just have to not worry about I don't have to worry about the donation of Constantine. I don't have to worry about the pseudo-Isidorian decretals. I don't have to worry about the Babylonian captivity of the church.
No Catholic apologist points to that, though. I mean, I think Gregory VII used the pseudo-Isidorian decretals once for like a letter to someone, at least based on what I've read. I mean, oh man.
All that stuff's gone. It just doesn't matter anymore.
I guess I'm not following the argument, and that could be completely on me. I'm just not following how we go from papal authority to you've got to be 100% on this.
Because
like I said, Cameron Bertuzzi is going to be, I don't know how close he is to the Catholic Church, but he'll be closer after this because I think he's seen that White's arguments are ridiculous. Yeah, that seems to be everyone's favorite argument, Settler. All right.
Pope, the papal authority is saying
we can go the Pope.
This is the infallible vicar of Christ
You can tell Cameron's not buying any of this. He's kind of just shaking his head. He's like, what did I get myself into? Now, that doesn't get you off the hook, Cameron, for your stupid equation. That is dumb. The probability thing is dumb. But, yeah, let's go.
On earth. He is infallible in all of his teachings. And so when...
Does it actually say that in Vatican I? That's something I'm curious about. The infallibility part.
We, therefore, for the preservation, safekeeping, increase the Catholic flock with approval of the Sacred Council, the judge to be necessary to propose to the belief and acceptance of the faithful, in accordance with the ancient and constant faith of the universal church, the doctrine touching the institution, perpetuity, and nature of the sacred apostolic primacy, which is then continued on in its definition in what I read rather lengthily about 5 or 10 minutes ago. If anyone, therefore, shall say that the blessed...
Yeah, and like I'll be honest, there are much sharper objections. In fact, I'd recommend going to Father James's channel, see both sides. You know, you've got my stuff, you can go see his stuff. I'm plugging his channel. Subscribe. He's a good guy.
Peter the Apostle was not appointed the Prince of the Apostles, and the visible head of the whole church militant, or the same directly and immediately received from the same our Lord Jesus Christ, a primacy of honor only, and not of true and proper jurisdiction, let him,
like the Arians believe, by the way,
be anathema. And that continues. The Second Vatican Council continued that. In order that the episcopate itself might be one and undivided, he placed Blessed Peter over the other apostles, instituted in him a permanent, visible source and foundation of unity of faith and fellowship, and all this teaching about the institution, perpetuity, force, and reason of the sacred primacy of the Roman Pontiff, and his infallible teaching authority, the Sacred Synod again proposes to be firmly believed by all the faithful, end quote, Vatican II.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing that Cameron Bertuzzi was challenging him on was all the teachings. When he said all the teaching, you know, not everything the Pope says is infallible. Anyway.
Okay.
So it's there. And all I'm saying is the Roman claim is 100%. Your
yeah, and let me say something about Father James. I do appreciate the fact that he like actually read the Relatio. Like, that's impressive. I don't know any other Protestant who's read the Relatio. I know the Petrus, who'd be Petrus, has read the Relatio, but I think Elijah's refuted him on his misunderstanding. Ortland has better argument. Ortland? It's easy to refute Ortland, though. At least I think so. Go check my video. Anyway.
Bayesian analysis can only get you 95%, but the point is, what's demanded of you to be firmly believed by all the faithful, if you want to be faithful, is to accept the infallible teaching authority, which then says, we've always believed this. And all the rest of that stuff that I've mentioned in passing, the Babylonian captivity of the church.
What does the Babylonian captivity of the church have to do with any of this?
Where you have two popes.
No, you have one pope and one anti-pope. That's what you have.
Anathematizing each other for quite some time. And they could never heal it themselves, by the way.
Oh, here we go.
Are you familiar with the Babylonian captivity?
In the Old Testament?
No. This is the Babylonian captivity of the church, which took place when in the 14th century, the papacy moved from Rome to Avignon, France. And
no, I'm not familiar with this.
Okay. The papacy moved.
Oh, Father James, so this is what you were talking about in our text. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, no, like, yeah, it's kind of shocking he does not know about this. Like, at least, like, I don't expect him to know all the details, but he probably should know this. Oh, by the way, trivia question. What year did the papacy come back to Rome? Can anyone answer this? Use the comments. I'll see if you can.
To Avignon, France.
It's 1378.
And then after a period of time, there was a reform movement, and a counter to that was reestablished back in Rome. And for decades, you had two popes.
No.
And Europe divided up.
No. You had one pope and an anti-pope. And in fact, the reason they had the Council of Constance is so many people were abandoning the anti-pope. I mean, I think Spain had already stopped following the anti-pope by then. Spain had stopped by 1415. They had chucked the anti-pope. I believe that was Benedict the, I don't know, 13th. I don't know the number. But they had already stopped following the anti-pope.
As to which of the two popes they would follow. The Council of Pisa in the early 15th century attempted to heal the schism and only succeeded in electing a third pope. And so finally, it was the Council of Constance.
By the way, this is interesting. There was another council, another period in church history where there were 3 popes, or a pope and 2 anti-popes. But he doesn't bring that up. I don't know why. That's in the early 11th century, before the Reformed papacy, starting with Pope Leo IX. I'm shocked he doesn't bring that up. I don't know why, but I'm sure if he knew about it, he'd like to. But I think the Protestants don't like the Protestant guys he reads don't bring that up. They bring up this up. Dyer has a mania, but he's open to that care outside Neoplatonism and Plato's ideas. Okay. Do you hear that a Palmarian pope, like an older one, stopped being a Palmarian pope and was reconciled to the Catholic Church as a layman? Yes, he was.
Around 1415, that met, deposed all 3 popes, and healed the papacy. That's the same council that burned Jan Hus for believing in justification by faith alone, by the way. And so,
by the way, Carl Trueman does not agree with you there. He says he did not believe that. I mean, he was a heretic, don't get me wrong. Now, I do got to admit I'm underread on Jan Hus, and that's because, frankly, I don't think he's worth my time. I got one book on Jan Hus I need to read, and after I read that, I mean, like, I see no purpose in reading that guy. But
Sola Scriptura. But the point is, the papacy was not able to heal itself. It took a council to do so. And so for a brief period of time, there was the thought, maybe conciliarism is the way to go. Maybe it's ruled by council.
Conciliarism, and by the way, we still have councils. Conciliarism comes out of medieval, because in the medieval period, kings were starting to get parliaments. And that's where it comes from. There was a parliamentary system. Now, the term conciliarism means different things at different times. The Catholic Church obviously has ecumenical councils. The last 200 years, we've had Vatican I and II. So we have ecumenical councils where there's a conciliar model. And not every council is ecumenical. Like, we've had other synods and councils as well. But what we need to remember is that it's not like it's either or, it's both and. Anyway.
That didn't last.
And keep in mind, when people say conciliarism, it means different things at different times. You'll have to ask Dr. White on that one.
Very long. The papacy reasserted its absolute and ultimate authority, and has continued to do so ever since then.
But how did they do that? With the Council of Constance?
Yes. 1414 to 1415.
And did the Council of Constance, did they made the new pope, the pope?
Yes.
You said there was 3. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend taking a look at this, because if the papacy is true, it's been true at all times, not just simply today. It has to have been true in the past as well. And so you have the Babylonian captivity.
Lofton has a good response to this. I won't get into it now because I'm trying to finish this.
To be the church. And earlier than that, the reason I wasn't really changing topic, But when I asked you if you're familiar with Canon 6 of the Council of Nicaea, this is directly relevant. Let me read you what Canon 6 says. Now, just for people watching and listening, most people familiar with the Council of Nicaea only know the creedal statement in regards to the Son being...
James White, do you believe Canon 18 of the Council of Nicaea that talks about the Eucharist being the body of Christ and it being offered up? Do you believe that?
Homoousios, not heterousios, not homoousios, but homoousios with the Father. But
that's a tongue twister. Say that 10 times quickly.
All of these councils, whether it was Chalcedon or Nicaea or even the anti-Nicene councils like Sirmium, which most people don't know anything about. Most people do not realize that the one man who stood for the Council of Nicaea during the Arian ascendancy after the Council of Nicaea was Athanasius of Alexandria.
What? There's a few things he normally says at this point. Is he going to talk about Pope Liberius signing the Arian Creed?
The Bishop of Rome, Liberius, gave in.
I promise you I didn't know that. I promise you I didn't know that. I promise you I haven't seen this. Cross my heart, I haven't seen this. But let me tell you something. James White hasn't read the primary sources because the primary sources lean toward him not doing. A couple sources say he did. Like Sozomen says he did, but Socrates doesn't say he did. And then how come he was like how come they punished him anyway and put Pope Felix the anti-pope there? I thought he had collapsed on it. It only makes sense if he didn't sign it. Anyway,
he signed the Arianized Sirmium Creed.
He most likely did not.
He gave in on the deity of Christ. The Bishop of Rome did, but Athanasius.
I think I'm going to do a video on Pope Liberius because James White is just using this tired argument. Go read Socrates. Yes, Sozomen does. I can see that, but no, I think I'll do a separate video. Just
didn't, and he.
But the thing is, James White, I know for sure, has not read the primary sources on this.
He prevailed, but it took decades, and he didn't prevail by claiming to be anything other than a person faithful to the Scriptures, and he argued that way. But anyway, the Council of Nicaea also passed canons as well as its creed.
Okay, and by the way, if Pope Liberius did sign it, unlikely, but it's always possible. It was definitely under duress. It was under duress, but I don't believe he signed it.
And canon number 6 says, "Let the
kind of duress that Pope Vigilius was under, that kind of duress.
Ancient customs in Egypt, Libya, and Pentapolis prevail, that the Bishop of Alexandria have jurisdiction in all these, since the like is customary for the Bishop of Rome also. Likewise, in Antioch and the other provinces, let the churches retain their privileges. And this is to be universally understood that if anyone be made a bishop without the consent of the metropolitan, the great synod has declared that such a man ought not to be a bishop, etc., etc." The point is,
The point is, if that was all we had, you might have a case, but we have more than
6 specifically identifies the Bishop of Alexandria as having jurisdiction in Egypt, Libya, and Pentapolis, not the Bishop of Rome. He has jurisdiction in the area of Italy, but not in Egypt. And the same thing is true.
Well, then how come Pope Victor was able to excommunicate Theodosius of Byzantium in the 2nd century and not just break communion? Because I think it talks, I'm going off my memory here, talks about casting him out or something like that. I can't remember the exact words, so I may be wrong on that, but it's clearly an excommunication.
True of Antioch and the other provinces, let the churches retain their privileges. There is no concept of the Council of Nicaea of the primacy of the Bishop of Rome. In fact, think about it. Why would you have the Council of Nicaea if anyone in those days believed that what you're being asked to believe today, that the Bishop of Rome is the infallible vicar of Christ on earth?
Why did we have Vatican II? How come the Pope didn't say, this is what's going to happen?
With teaching authority. They didn't go to the Bishop of Rome. Nobody thought you would. He only sent 2 representatives. The vast majority of the bishops of Nicaea, of the 318 bishops, came from the East.
So what's that have to
And
do?
those two from Rome did not have any central role in the decision of the council. So why think about that? If at the beginning of the 4th century, the beliefs you are demanded to believe now by the Roman Catholic Church were true, there is no reason. I'm sorry?
Weren't believed then.
What
I was finishing your sentence. Sorry. Cut you off.
Okay. No. Do you see what I'm saying? In fact, this is an argument I've made many, many times. I have asked Roman Catholic friends.
I'm curious, Father James. I thought you didn't believe in final damnation. Or perhaps final damnation, you mean something else different than. But I believe Zwingli, that stuff.
People I was debating, show me a single bishop at the Council of Nicaea that believed dogmatically what you are to believe today dogmatically.
Well, what do you expect? First of all, we don't have a lot of their writings. Yeah, we got some, but not all. Like we got Athanasius. He was not a bishop, though. He was probably a deacon, maybe a priest, but not the bishop. But what, I can't remember if he said bishops at all, but we don't have enough. Now, why doesn't James White apply this standard to Christology? Like not Nicaea Christology, but the later Christology. Chalcedon, Constantinople III. Anyway.
And there's no way to answer that question because there's nobody that did. There is nobody at the Council of Nicaea that believed the bodily assumption of Mary was a dogma revealed by...
It wasn't a dogma then. It was believed by some people, and I would say a lot of people, although they didn't focus on it till the emperor in 450 something, I can't remember the exact year, said to go fetch me Mary's body, and then that's when people started talking about it left, right, and center.
By God, not a one. And there was no.
This is good. This is what I wanted from the show with you today, is to learn from you.
But James White won't debate this anymore. By the way,
it's ultimately and this is great. This is exactly.
Well,
I'm hoping we can do more of this.
Well,
I know you want to ask me questions and you have some other goals, but
well, let me just say, they may be older, but when we did debates back in the 90s with people like Mitch Pacwa, Patrick Madrid, Robertson Jenis, Gary Machuda on the Apocrypha, and I know
all of these on YouTube.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And the difference, honestly, the difference back then with today,
the difference is you were able to get away with a lot of stuff, and now that our side is done. By the way, I'm no one to gloat, but I'm going to say the best apologists out there are Catholic now. Like maybe in the 90s, the Protestants had the upper hand, but those days are gone. And the best Protestants, like I said, are all the Paedo-Baptist ones, like Father James, like Dr. Cooper, like what's his name, Anthony Rogers. Those are the best that your side has, and they probably think you're a heretic.
A lot of the debates we have today, you got a guy sitting there with a fan going behind him on YouTube. These, you had to travel, you had to fly, and you had months to prepare. And it's a completely different world now. It really, really is. I think there is a fundamental difference between the debates that you did back then and the debates you do today. I mean, you can do...
I think that's super unfair.
No, why? Why would that be unfair?
Well, because the discussions that I guess you're referring to me. Like No. I was not referring to you. I'm simply talking about the fact that during COVID, especially, we're all locked down, and all of a sudden, everybody is on YouTube, and they forget to turn the ceiling fan off above them, which makes everybody, and they're just
They just decided.
I thought you were saying like I had a fan blowing
No. I wasn't saying. What I was saying is a lot of the debates that are going on now were scheduled the week before they happened.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that may be true. Not always, but it may be true. But the thing is, people have been studying these topics for years. Like for example, I know Father James is in there. If a person says, yo, Alan, I think you should debate James on apostolic curiae, which was the Catholic document against Anglican orders. No one's going to ask me to do that debate, and if they do, I'll say no, because I haven't studied that. I mean, if it's something else I know well, yeah, I may take him up on that. But it's like I think in the debate with with William Albrecht and who's that Orthodox guy, Deacon Joseph Sweden, he said he had been researching this for 15 years. Like, obviously, yeah, sure, the debates are it's not as serious how they're scheduled now, but the people still know the topics. Like James White trying to say, oh yeah, back in the day, debates were like super. Yeah, it's a lot easier to organize now, and most debates are online. In fact, that's how I met Father James. I was in the comments of a debate he did with John Fisher. That's a good debate, by the way, the Apostolic Curiae debate. Again, I'm very green on that stuff, but there's people that know it better than me, and I like watching them debate.
And that's not good, because if you're going to really honor the audience and the topic.
Basically, he's saying all debates are stupid, but the ones I did.
For example, I've debated Bart Ehrman. Do you know who Bart Ehrman is?
Yeah.
Okay. You know how many months?
Channel.
Do you know how many months I prepared to debate Bart Ehrman? I mean, aside from.
Yeah, but it's not the months you took to prepare. It's studying the material. You've studied that for a long time. Sure, you may have spent so much time prepping for Ehrman, but you actually knew the stuff for a long time. That's why you knew you could debate Ehrman.
Having taught Greek for decades and stuff like that.
Exactly. You've known it for decades. You've taught Greek for decades. That's what it is.
How many months specifically I spent preparing to debate Bart Ehrman?
I don't think
so. I think it's different for everybody. It could be that you had already studied the topic enough to where you didn't need it, but like a refresher on it.
6 months.
So, but my guess.
6 months.
I was about to. Yeah, I was going to guess somewhere around there.
6 months
for a formal debate where you're on stage. That seems very reasonable.
Exactly. I listened to his classes. I read his books. That's, I think, the best way to do these types of things.
How much time do you think he spent on preparing?
None.
For it?
Absolutely.
That was brilliant. Oh, that was brilliant, Cameron. Oh man, that was. Like I told you, it's only going to bring them closer to the church. Let me tell you. Oh man,
positively none. In fact, you know how I can prove it.
So you're really just talking about yourself now.
Yes,
you're like I do it this way. Everyone should do it this way.
I believe I showed respect to him and my audience by preparing. He did not show respect to me and my audience by not preparing.
Well, Bart Ehrman just a genuinely unpleasant person, I think.
And I can prove he didn't prepare. You know how? Because he used the exact same slides he had used in his debate with Dan Wallace, including the same typographical errors that he had to apologize for the second time around. So he hadn't even looked at them. He doesn't. Most of the people, when I debated John Shelby Spong on homosexuality, he did not bring a Bible to the debate, and the topic of the debate was, is homosexuality consistent with the Bible? John
Shelby Spong, is that who you're going to show? Oh, I debated Spong. Like, Spong is a fraud. Spong is a promoter of sodomy.
Like, he didn't bring a Bible. So this is when I debate people like...
Yeah, and your debate with, what's his name? Barry Lynn, he didn't bring a Bible.
That they don't invest a second. They really don't. So I was not.
Yeah, but the people, like, for example, Dr. White, the people that reason in theology have been researching this for years. Like, if you debate Ibarra on the papacy, that would be a good debate. I'd like to see. He debated Father Patrick. I thought that was a good debate. I thought both sides did well. In fact, Father Patrick might have had the best arguments against the papacy I've ever heard in that debate, because he's really good at that.
In any way saying anything about you, I was simply saying we have done debates on the papacy that are very in-depth, and just because they were done in the 90s doesn't mean that the information is still not really relevant and really useful. So I'd highly recommend them to you. So, all right, there's so many of these things, Canon 6 and all the rest of this stuff. I would just so highly recommend to you taking the time to minimally read George Salmon's book, The Infallibility of the Church. I don't get the feeling...
Why don't you go back and read what the early church says? I'm not saying read the modern Catholics. Oh, you got to read the modern Protestants. No, just go back and read the early church. Read Socrates.
That you've... how much interaction, real quick, have you had with John Henry Cardinal Newman so far?
None.
See, that concerns me as well, because the modern...
He hasn't read Newman, he hasn't read Salmon. It's equal. What you should be pointing him to, Dr. White, and you're not, is to read the early church documents.
Roman Catholic apologetic, and its entire paradigm has been determined by Newman.
I never used Newman.
Newman was just really briefly. Newman.
Oh no, I know who he was.
What did Catholic apologists do before Newman? Like, what did Francis de Sales do? He argued for it based on the scriptures and other evidences. Oh man,
I know his story. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I just haven't read his stuff. I've been focused on other stuff.
But almost everybody you have been reading has been deeply influenced by him. Let's just put it that way. So I think that just.
Oh, by the way, in Carl Keating's book, Catholicism and Fundamentalism, he loves Newman. Oh man.
I think you can see why it'd be very, very important to look at what happened with him with Vatican I, his opposition to papal infallibility, and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it. Now, with all that said, and looking at the clock, I'm sorry. What? Oh, yeah. Rich did get me the top 10 reasons not to join the Roman Catholic Church. I'll just
the blog post.
Yeah, and I will. It's from August.
Tweet it to me or message me on Twitter.
It's from August. Wow, August 20th of 2007. Here, I thought it was just a few years ago. Once you get my age, everything feels like it was just a few years ago. Actually, it's just sort of how that works. So I just sent it to you DM in Twitter.
Nice.
Now,
nice.
Okay, let's
can't do that because he's blocked me on Twitter.
Because we want to try to keep this
because I exposed him
to a length to where people are going to be willing to want to listen to all of it and things like that.
I'm also getting pretty hungry. I didn't eat lunch.
Yeah, and you said you had to pick up kids too. So So real quick, I don't know whether you heard it, but when I responded to you, one of the things that I said, I'm not sure
the blessed man.
Well, yes. That is vitally a key issue.
You should watch his justification debate with Syngenis. The blessed man that whole argument was just torn into pieces, crumpled up, and thrown in the garbage. Oh, it was beautiful.
Since you heard it, then you know what I'm talking about here in regards to the imputed righteousness of Christ. I realize in a lot of charismatic churches that's not necessarily a part of the regular preaching. I can assure you.
You know what I wish I could do? I wish I could take you with me to the church that I used to attend. That would be amazing.
What church?
I don't think James White
are you attending a church right now? Okay.
I am. Yeah, it's a non-denominational church, but it's a lot better. It's a lot better.
When you say better, you mean
okay, guys, I'm going to try not to
clear
pause
ministry of the word.
Try to comment.
Oh yes. He reminds me of Tim Keller, my pastor.
Okay. Okay.
Look at White's face.
How is that on your scale of like where does he fit in?
Tim Keller?
Yeah.
Well, that would lead us way off into other stuff that is different.
Sorry.
There's still some issues to talk about there. But since you raised it, the blessed man.
No.
Did you see my conversation with Peter Stravinskas on that?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
I
he
played
said
it.
that
To a lot of stuff.
Stravinsky
That's
didn't
fine.
have an answer.
I
Where's
watched.
your Genesis plugging?
In fact, I will haunt you in your dreams if you do not start watching
don't.
the debates that I've done with Roman Catholics for 20, 30 years. You will never sleep again. But
I did watch your debate with Ehrman. I did watch that one, and I thought that was really good.
Okay, well, but that's very different. That's
Oh yeah,
that's
Yeah, it has nothing to
history.
do
That's
with
text
papacy.
criticism, stuff like that. You've got to watch the debate that I did with Father Peter Stravinskas. It's on Purgatory. You would think, that was one of the most revealing debates that I've ever done. 2001. Listen to the cross-examination, and then come back to me and say, yeah, okay. Let me know. But I asked him, and I played this in my review of your. You must have missed this part. I played my questioning of him. Are you the blessed man of Romans 4:8? His first response was, the blessed man is Jesus.
Mm.
And I'm like, so Jesus is the man to whom the Lord will not impute sin? His sin? And he realized, nah, that doesn't really work too well. And so I gave him a second shot at it. And the only thing he come up with is, I hope to be the blessed man.
Okay.
And so my question for you to think about, not necessarily answer, but to think about,
Okay.
is just this. I do not believe that within the Roman Catholic system, as defined by the dogmatic teachings of the church, not by someone teaching at Boston College today or something like that, but as defined by Trent and Vatican II and Vatican I, and even by the Universal Catholic Catechism, for that matter, that Roman Catholicism can answer the question, who is the blessed man of Romans 4:8? Because in Roman Catholicism, if you commit a venial sin, it is imputed to you, and you bear the temporal punishment for the venial sin. If you commit a mortal sin, it's imputed to you, and you have to be rejustified through the sacrament of penance. So there is no non-imputation of sin within Roman Catholicism. It just doesn't exist, because there is no positive imputation of the righteousness of Christ. It's called a legal fiction by Roman Catholic apologists and by Roman Catholic theology.
Well, not
and
the one
so
you debated.
there is no answer to Romans 4:8. But my question to you is, how make it a statement.
Don't forget, I'm still Protestant.
The only reason not to be a Catholic in the West today is if you recognize that you are, in fact, the blessed man, and that your sins have been imputed to Christ and his righteousness has been imputed to you. And therefore, to leave that glorious hope for the penitential system and sacramental system of Roman Catholicism is the one thing that I will never, ever, ever be able to understand on the part of someone who makes that move.
That's why you'll never
What if they
understand
just
it.
said that justification is just about that, about righteousness, being righteous in the sight of God, but then sanctification
All right.
is just a separate story?
Well, the problem is in classic Roman Catholic theology, the two are confounded with one another.
Well, in Scripture,
Are you
it's
got-
confounded
well,
as well.
Are you familiar
Not to-
with?
Never thought of
Well,
that.
okay. Read Trent.
Corinthians
Read the
1.
people at the time.
Yeah.
Recognize that
He's giving
the
him a lot of
Lutheran
homework
Concord
here.
and all the rest of that kind of stuff is not dogmatic, by the way, but is talking about other things. But keep this in mind, really quick. Are you familiar with Luther's dunghill analogy?
No.
Oh, come on, man. What were you doing on every Reformation Sunday? I mean, you never dressed up like Martin Luther or anything like that? I mean,
Dunghill.
what have you been
Oh,
doing
well,
for
okay,
your
first
youth?
of all, I can't grow a beard. If I could grow a beard, I'd have one,
Okay, all right.
and I would look cooler than you.
Well,
Yeah,
good
you
luck
would.
with that. Anybody's gonna look cooler than me. I'm an old fat Scotsman. But Okay, I don't have time to redo it. We'll have to revisit this.
Okay.
And we will. But I do very much want to encourage you to recognize that history, the teaching of Scripture, these cannot be analyzed in a statistical fashion.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
right.
I encourage you to continue your studies, but I also encourage you to recognize that the things that you're studying absolutely defy being put into any type of a calculation.
Yeah, no, he's right. Yeah.
There's way too much of the human aspect to be put into the history. And the other thing is there's way too much, we haven't even talked about this, but we need to talk about the issue of Scripture and scriptural authority and what is theopneustos and what is not.
Oh, here we go.
And so, like I said, take the time to listen to the debate I did with Mitch Packwell. Watch that one because it's available on YouTube. And see if you can't hear why that's a big area that we need to be addressing as well.
Fair enough.
Sound fair?
I'll take your word. I'm taking it very, very seriously. I mean, I've been taking notes today, so.
Now, was that as bad as you expected it to be?
As bad? I didn't. Well,
come on, you can be honest with me.
No, because so my goal again when I came into this conversation was to learn from you. So I figured if you understood that, then it wasn't going to be like a big issue.
Yeah,
there wasn't going to be any fireworks or anything like. So, and that was literally my only goal going into this is I wanted to learn from you. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to have me on the show. I was at the Tim Stratton debate. I don't know if you saw me. I was there. I was there in person. Yeah. And there was the line to talk to you.
Believe me, I know.
It wrapped around the whole building and like into the, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I even walked in there one day. I walked in there just like, trying to see if I could catch your glance, and it just didn't happen.
Sorry,
but
sorry.
I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
I wish you had just waved or something, and I would have definitely agreed with you. But I do try to stay around afterwards and greet people for as long as I possibly can, which sometimes can be absolutely positively exhausting, but it's always enjoyable to do. So I appreciate that. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I get the feeling we'll probably get a chance to do something like this again in the future. I think it was useful, hopefully for you. If there's anything you've jotted down that is unclear to you or something like that, I want to be able to direct you to the resources so that you can make sure to get the best material you can and make wise decisions. So
awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. God bless. Thank you.
See ya.
All right.
So should I kill the screen now?
Fast moving. I cannot imagine that anyone was at all bored during that conversation. Let me just look over here at Twitter. I don't.
Of course, he blocked me on Twitter. So
see, I see nothing. Not a single comment. Of course, I didn't invite people to comment in Twitter, but I saw absolutely no discussion what they're going there whatsoever. But I'm not searching on Capturing Christianity either, so maybe something would pull up there. But no one's mentioning it to me. But hopefully, just one thing. The only thing I had in front of me today was because I had read it when I did the review, is I had an open document that contained the quotations from Pastor Eternos, Vatican I, and the quote from Vatican II. Over here, like I said, I never opened this, and I was going to ask if he had seen John R. Page's "What Will Dr. Newman Do?" but he said he hadn't gotten to Newman yet, so that would sort of be somewhat secondary.
Guys, I'm going to make a suggestion. Catholics, Protestants, both of us, stop quoting Newman. Just stop bringing him up. I think he's irrelevant because Catholics have, like, what did Francis de Sales do? What did Francis de Sales do? He never had Newman. Was he stuck? He managed to convert the whole Chablais region. He never had Newman. So let's just let's get away from Newman. Let's get away from
that point. But all of that was from debates from 20 years ago, which are still vitally important today.
Oh, yeah.
And from the fact that I'll be teaching early church history at Grace Bible Theological Seminary the last weekend in September.
Pray for
it actually goes to
students.
October 1st. I think Saturday is October 1st.
Frightening.
And I've just taught this stuff for ages. There's just so much that needs to be looked at to have a full-orbed picture of the claims that Rome makes and issues related to it. So hopefully that was
I
useful
recommend
to
reading
folks,
primary sources,
and also helps you understand the
pretty much what I tried
importance
to do.
of sola scriptura. And before we wrap up, you haven't started music or anything, have you? Good. Let me show you something. You know what I'm going to do, don't you? That's as big as I can get.
That was pretty ridiculous.
This picture was sent to me about 2 hours ago. And
I got that.
you have here
Aquinas.
reading Job with St. Thomas Aquinas. And we have the Summa of the Summa. And
I have that book.
we've got a book we've got Levering in here. Notice what it says. It says sword and trowel staff recommendations. If you look in the background, you can see some T-shirts hanging there.
Oh, you just got to read Salmon.
5 of the 10 books on this display are written by Roman Catholics. Where is this display? Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary bookstore.
Only read what
Now,
I approve.
Last December, I think, I pointed out that I was seeing a lot of recommendations by Reformed Baptists of books by Roman Catholics. And one of the rather childish responses to that was that whenever anybody reads something by a Roman Catholic, oh, that's papism. I have obviously tons and tons of books in my library by Roman Catholics, and not just
papist. You're a papist,
that
Dr. White.
Are on Roman Catholic theology. I've got a very healthy Roman Catholic theology section, obviously.
Well, then
but
why are you complaining?
On other subjects
You're
as well.
doing the same thing.
Roman Catholics can be wonderful historians.
Can we?
They can be wonderful philosophers.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, a Roman Catholic, if he or she is truly a Roman Catholic, and this came up in the conversation, is a person with an ultimate authority, an ultimate epistemological authority. In fact, that's one of the things that they say to promote their system. Remember Patrick Madrid years and years ago. What is the blueprint for anarchy? Sola Scriptura. Because the teaching magisterium of the church gives you this uniformity. This uniformity, you see. And this consistency. Great advantage to it, isn't there? And the problem is that the people in these books that we're looking, that I was showing you there, the people in these books are writing books specifically on the great tradition and classical theism. I'm reading a book right now by Dr. Craig Carter.
I don't know who that is. Who is that?
And he says that you should read right along with his book, a book by Boersma called Scripture as Real Presence.
I've never heard of that book. Has anyone heard of that
These individuals are
in the chat
promoting an understanding of Scripture that is not compatible in any way, shape, or form with any kind of Protestant, let alone Reformed Baptist or Reformed at all, understanding of Scripture. It's not possible.
I trust barely Protestants probably 1,000 times more than Dr. White, who's, let's face it, a fake Protestant. Everyone would there you go. There, I trust. Go pick the book up.
And yet here,
because James White hates it and Father James loves it. That's enough for me.
At Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, 5 of the 10 books on display. I think this was today at the bookstore. We'll see how long that display stays up, huh? But 5 of the 10 by Roman Catholics.
I'm doxing their bookshelf.
On subjects where I simply have to ask, don't we have anything good on that?
Yes. 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 Yes.
It is not, oh, we can't read Roman Catholics. It's you need to recognize the fundamental compromise that they have made in regards to the nature of Scripture.
Ooh, he's getting
that they have to make.
Whoa.
You don't understand Roman Catholicism.
No.
You don't understand it.
Maybe they should read more Aquinas then.
Sorry. Some of you Reformed Baptists, you don't get it. And you're not going to get it until it's your students that are swimming the Tiber. And then it's too late. And I've tried to warn you. And you will not listen.
Your students swim the Tiber, Dr. White?
You will not listen. You just listened to an hour's worth of why these things are important.
I got to admit, this last couple minutes is the most exciting part of the whole video. Because I don't really like that.
All righty. Well, there is so much to be talking about, and we will get to it. But I want to thank everybody who made that possible, but especially Cameron. He said he was a little nervous.
No more equations.
I understand why.
No equations.
I just wish you all would recognize I am just, and Rich will tell you, I am just the most lovable, warm, fuzzy bear in the world.
Oh, fuzzy white. Fuzzy bear white. He can't even say that.
He couldn't keep a straight face.
Yeah,
he said with a straight face.
Couldn't either. just ask Summer. I still think I like to tell the story when she was being interviewed a couple of years ago. Someone asked her in one word, describe what it was like to be raised by James White, and her answer was hilarious. Hilarious. Because we had a lot of fun, and I can have a lot of fun. I'm not that, but you get me into a debate, and I've got a job to do.
Father James.
And I do the job. That's people think that's what I'm always like. Thankfully, I'm not like Jerry Matitix. Jerry Matitix is like that. He never stops debating. If we met right now, he'd pick up right where we last left off with whatever debate it was we did.
Jeopardy, by the way, Jerry Matitix.
He'd have a Diet Coke in his hand. But other than that, he. Yep. I know. But I'm not like that. I'm actually gonna drive a little out of town and do a bike ride I haven't done in a long time up a 7,000-foot mountain, and I'm gonna be studying all the way driving out, all the way driving back. While I'm riding, I'm gonna be listening to books because we do the dividing line, and that's why you listen. Thanks for listening to the program today. Lord willing, we'll see you on Thursday. God bless.
All right. So Dr. White is done. I hope you enjoyed that video. I mean, I didn't like that equation stuff. I like the commentary stuff. That was like my commentary. But so yeah, no, thanks. I got 26 people watching. I don't want to kill the stream because that's a lot watching. I don't normally get that much. So thank you guys. But let me just say something, guys. The most important book you need to read about becoming Catholic is this book. I said this. by Thomas A. Kempis. Confraternity of the Precious Blood. I recommend everyone read this book. I try to read it every day. I read 3 chapters a day. Chapters like 2 pages. Let me tell you, Father James, remember how I said that Bertuzzi, I don't know how close he was to the church prior to this, and I don't know how close he is now, but I guarantee you he's closer now because of White's, well, basically his stupidity. Because he tore apart the equation stuff, which was good. Exactly, the equations got to go. But I mean White. No, I got one. I got one more. It's a red one. I think it's by Francis de Sales. And I know there's another book by Thomas A. Kempis called The Imitation of Mary. I haven't read The Imitation of Mary, but this book is so darn good. Oh, man. I recommend it. It's the most important book you need to know to become Catholic. This book is our faith. This is how you live the faith. Sure, you don't get explanations of the doctrines, but most people don't anyway. So read that book. I'm whittling down my top 10 favorite books list, by the way. That's Inside Baseball. That's a future video that Father James and I will be doing. I can't give any details now, but yeah, that's going to be a fun one. But here you go. Read this book. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed my commentary on Dr. White and Cameron Bertuzzi. I think White made bad points, but Bertuzzi, that stupid equation, please don't do that. Please, please, please. I mean, oh. Yeah, but no, that last part was entertaining, especially when he's trying to talk serious and then he just bursts out laughing. Of course, I started to burst out laughing just right before that. Anyway, all right, guys. So I wish every one of you a good day. It's 8:42 p.m. and I haven't ate supper yet. He's not Protestant. Well, Father James, you're barely Protestant yourself. I got you there. You know. Yeah, you got to defend the Bayesian, right? God bless everyone. All right, see you, Father James. God bless, and I will see all of you. Hopefully, you will. I got a show coming up this Sunday evening with elite apologist that White won't debate, Eric Ybarra. And we are going to be talking about the Photian Schism, an episode in the 9th century. Again, a lot of people don't know a lot about it. Tune in to learn more. Some good stuff. It's always good when Eric's on. And apart from that, I'm going to say God bless. I'm going to kill the stream. Remember to read this book, read the Bible, say a prayer, say the Our Father, and the Hail Mary. God bless you all.